नमस्ते गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरतुषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna, welcome everyone back again. We are continuing with our theme of Sripad Ramanujacharya's commentary on 12th chapter Bhagavad Gita. This is the second part. Last time we did the first part. So before we go into the commentary again, once again, we will start with the verse of Yamunacharya, where he summarizes the 12th chapter. Yamunacharya's summary is always read because Ramanujacharya and all other commentators have referred to that summary before they have commented. So that's why his summary becomes important for almost all other commentaries that come later. Bhakti Shreshtam Upayoktah Asaktasya Atmanishtita Tat Prakasha tu Atipriti Bhakti Dwadasha Uchyate. So he says there are 5 topics in the 12th chapter being discussed. First is Bhakti Shreshtam, the greatness of Bhakti. Over what? Over Atma Upasana, meditating on the Atma. That means Kaivalya Marga. So better than Kaivalya Marga is the Bhagavad Marga, right? And we saw 2 reasons for that, if you remember. One is that it is very pleasing, and Krishna also gives a special mercy. He comes and he delivers. Okay, so it becomes more, and also the goal and the path is the same. So it is considered more easy. Upayukta, second is the means of bhakti. How do you do bhakti? Okay, so this was from 12.8 to 12.10. Krishna has said from 12.8, always think of me. If you cannot do that, in Ramanujacharya in 12.9, he said that while doing your ordinary activities, keep remembering me, just like Mahamanusmara Yuddhicha. But somebody may say, even that is not possible for me. Then 12.10, Ramanujacharya says, then come to temple and worship me. When you come to temple and worship me, then you will have this practice of remembering me. Then in your routine daily activities also, you will be able to remember me. So that part, 12.8 to 12.10 is the Upaya to Bhakti. Atmanishtita, performance of Atma Upasana, that has also been spoken by one who is incapable of performing Bhakti. So if somebody is unable to perform Bhakti, then for him, Atma, the Jnana Marga is better. I'll recollect that in 12.12. This was the third thing. Tat Prakara, the attributes needed to perform Karma Yoga. This is what we will discuss today, the 4th part. And finally, the 5th one is Bhakti Atiprita, his boundless love for his devotee, Krishna's infinite love for his devotee. All this, Krishna says, has been discussed in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So there are 5 topics. So we have just done the first 3 last time. We will do the last 2. But before that, I will just recap the last part of the 12th chapter, 12th verse. This was a very important verse because the commentary here is kind of much different than most other commentaries. So we are just briefly recapping that, though I have completed it already. Before we go ahead, Shreyo hi jnanam abhyasad, jnanat dhyanam vishishyate, dhyanat karma phalatyaga, tyaga shantiranantaram. So the way Ramanujacharya, Sripad Ramanujacharya describes this, he says the topmost is 12.8, which we all know, which is like fixed bhakti. That means always thinking of Krishna, right? And doing literally nothing else. You are only focused on that. This is like, one may say something like the Alvars were like that, or even in all Sampradayas, you see devotees, right, who didn't do anything else except meditate on Krishna or being focused on Krishna literally 24 hours a day, right? So that is the topmost. If one cannot do that, then you try to remember Krishna in your daily work. You cannot do that also. That is abhyas. That's what he calls as abhyas. You cannot do that. Do something for me. Work for me. Come to my temple, chant, dance, right? Worship me. So in this way, you'll have the practice of remembering me. See, actually, if you see, this commentary makes sense in the perspective that one of the reasons we go to the temple to serve the Lord is so that we can bring that consciousness with us in our daily activities, right? That's the whole purpose. So that is why this commentary makes sense, because 12.10 he says is worshipping Krishna in a temple and doing things for him, doing some seva for him. But because when you are doing that seva for Krishna, that time remembering Krishna is very easy. And then the next step is, even in your ordinary course of action, you are remembering Krishna. That's considered more difficult. And the most difficult is always thinking about Krishna and just doing only, only that. That means not even engaging the body in anything else, which is like very, very difficult. It's the highest stage of bhakti. Correct. So now, but if somebody cannot do that also, so this verse, Ramanujacharya, the way he has said, Shreyohi Jnanam Abhyasat. If you cannot do Abhyas means, then better than that is Jnanam. So again, if you remember, I discussed this last time. Somebody may say, Are, Jnanam is being spoken as superior to Abhyas. Abhyas was already part of Bhakti, right? 12.9. How can Jnana be superior to that? So Ramanujacharya's commentary is, this is in the context of a person who is unable to do it. Okay, so somebody is unable to do Abhyasa. For such a person, Jnana is better. Jnana means the Atma Sakshatkar. That part is better. Okay, so it is like saying that, if you cannot crack IIT, JEE, then instead of simply struggling, going to Kota, studying very hard, and ultimately, like we see so many students, they commit suicide, better you do engineering in some local college. But then somebody may say, even that is difficult. Then we may say, better than doing engineering in a local college, if it is not possible for you, that is, then you might as well do some, commerce or something like that. Life is not going to stop. It's not that if you're not an engineer, the world is going to fall down. And if you cannot even do that, no problem. I mean, there are so many people who are not even so-called college educated, but they also make money. They have learned some trick, some, some skill they have, and with that they make money. So we do speak like that, right? So Ramanujacharya describes this verse in that context. So if you cannot do Abhyasa, you cannot always think of me, then that means if you are not qualified for that, or if you are finding it too difficult, no problem. Take to the previous step. Take a step back, do Atma Sakshatkar. And if you cannot do that also, then do Dhyana. Dhyana is the meditation on the Atma. That is one step before that Atma Sakshatkar. And better than that Dhyana is Karma Phalatyaga. That means do Karma Yoga. Okay, so in which context? If you are unable to do Dhyana, right? So this Dhyana is which Dhyana? This is the 6th chapter Bhagavad Gita wala Dhyana. So somebody may say, 6th chapter Bhagavad Gita Dhyana is very difficult for me to do. So actually you have to go back, right? In the Krishna's Bhagavad Gita, who is competent to do the Dhyana of 6th chapter Bhagavad Gita? Only one who is able to do Karma Yoga well. Only he can do Dhyana, correct? See, the 6th chapter comes after 3rd and 4th and 5th chapter. So, Dhyanat Karma Phala Tyaga means what? That means better than Dhyana is Karma Phala. Not in the sense, we all know that better than Karma Yoga is Dhyana. That part is well understood. But here he's talking about a person who's unable to do. Because that is the context of the previous verses. Okay, so this is why commentaries become very beautiful. Because it's all in the context. It's in the context of all the previous verses. Because all the previous verses were talking about what? Krishna was talking about, if you cannot do this, do this. If you cannot do this, do this. So in that context, Krishna is saying, okay, so if you cannot do this also, then do this. At least try to do Karma Yoga. Okay, so if you see, Krishna has got the ladder down to Karma Yoga, saying that this is the minimum thing that everybody should try to do. Okay, Tyaga Chantir Anantaram, then this will purify you, and slowly you can then come up. Right, so that is how this commentary is, and this is one reason why commentaries are very, very important, because they help us understand the text so nicely. Otherwise, we don't understand really what's being said. Sometimes, especially some verses, more than the others, the commentary is extremely important. Some verses are very, very crystal clear what Krishna is saying, but in some places, it really helps us understand. So now let's go to the next part, right? So now we are going from 13th chapter. So this is a beautiful part. 13th to 20th verse, this is what we'll be doing today. And this is all about qualities. This is beautiful because Krishna has not described a bhakta in terms of anything external. He has not said bhakta means you will find him wearing a tilak, he'll have a shika, he will have some kantimala or something. He has not he has not said, he has not even said in terms of how much sadhana he will do. None of it he has said. He has only described bhakta in terms of qualities, saying that all these qualities, if it is there, he is my devotee. And that's how he has described a bhakta. So this is why we all need to understand that we are all work in progress, right? I mean, none of us can have the audacity to really call us a great bhakta, because we all know that we perhaps fall very short of all these qualities that Krishna is asking us, is demanding that a bhakta should have, right? So that's why this whole section is very beautiful. Everything is defined in terms of qualities, in terms of what you really are. Now, here again, before we go into it, Sripad Ramanujacharya's commentary, before we start, this is important. So, what he basically says is, he says, now onwards is tat prakaraha, the gunas needed to perform karma yoga. So, what Ramanujacharya says is, from the 13th verse to the 19th verse, these are all attributes of a karma yogi. Okay. Now, when you say they are attributes of a karma yogi, he very clearly says, but they are expected in a devotee as well. So that is why, so when we say that these are attributes of karma yogi, it doesn't mean that the devotee need not have these attributes. But Ramanujacharya says no. The karma yogi has to have these attributes, means the devotee should automatically have, because the bhakta is considered at a higher level, right? 12.8, 12.9, Gita is higher than 12.11 or 12.12. So, which means it's very clear that the bhakta needs to have these qualities, but the karma yogi also must have these qualities. That's the point, he says. Till 12.19, from 13 to 19, these 7 verses. And the final verse, which is there, 12.20, that is exclusively for a bhakta. So we will see that difference. So that is not for karma yogi, because the devotee will have some qualities, right, which even a karma yogi doesn't have. Otherwise, how can you say that the devotee is superior to the karma yogi, the bhakta? Correct. So that's why Ramanujacharya says in the 12th verse, the 20th verse, we all know Bhagavad Gita. So in the 20th verse, it comes Ativa me priya. Ativa me priya means Krishna is saying such a person is extremely dear to me. Till then, if you notice, Krishna says he is dear to me, he is dear to me, he is dear to me. But 20th verse, he says Ativa me priya, he is very dear to me. So he says, okay, that verse is only about the devotee. And the reasoning also will come soon. And all other verses are for karma yogi, but devotee also must have all these qualities. And that is why sometimes Krishna uses the word bhakta also, even in this 13 to 19. Because even the karma yogi is, Ramanujacharya says, can be called as a bhakta, because he is also devotionally inclined. He is also, offering the fruits of his action to the Supreme Lord. So that is why calling him a bhakta is fine. So like that. So that is how the commentary begins. Right, so now let's go into the qualities. The qualities are very, very beautiful, and it's really worth meditating on all these. Adveshta sarva bhutana maitra karuna evacha nirmamo nirahankaraha samadukta sukakshami. Look at the translation. Who is without any hatred for any living being, even if they do them wrong, has a friendly disposition towards those who do him harm, and even compassionate towards such people. He who does not have a feeling of mindness with regards to his body, senses, and all things associated with him, who is free from the delusion that the body is the Jivatman, he who remains equipoised when he experiences pain or pleasure from the various events of life, he who withstands heat and cold while performing his activities and puts up with the discomfort. So this is how he translates this particular verse. So let's go into it. So the first one is Adveshta Sarva Bhutana. Okay. So Adveshta means to not have dvesha. Advesha. Dvesha basically means envy. So against whom you will not have dvesha? Only those who are doing something wrong with you, right? Those who are doing something always nice to you, why will you have any dvesha towards them? Nobody has dvesha towards someone who is very favorably inclined towards them. We generally have dvesha only to people who are doing something troublesome for us. So that's why he's saying sarva, and this is sarva bhutanam. So bhutanam means, he says, this is all living beings. It may be a serpent, it may be a whatever, lion, tiger, any creature. So that is how he defines adveshta. So that's what. And then the Maitra and Karuna, you can see the commentary here. The commentary, what he says is, Maitra and Karuna are connected to Advishta. That means you should have a, Krishna is saying that not just that you don't have hatred for them, you should have Maitra also. You should have a friendly disposition to those who are doing harm to you. And Karuna also is connected to the same point, that you should even be compassionate to such people. So there will be some people who want to do something wrong for you, but even with such people, you should have a feeling of Maitra and Karuna. Okay, so for this, we can see several examples in the scriptures. I'll just be very brief here. So one example, obviously, is Yudhishthir Maharaj. When Duryodhan and the Dushyasana and Karna, we all know that when the Pandavas were in exile, they had come to do some mischief, right? They wanted to come and laugh at them and all that. And we know the story how Duryodhan fell in trouble with some Gandharvas and he was arrested by them and so on. When the Pandavas heard it, Bhima and others started laughing a little, saying that good, he got punished. But Yudhishthir said, no, he's our brother after all. Please go and release him from the Gandharva captivity. And then we know how Bhima, along with I think Arjuna also goes on the order of Yudhishthir and he releases. So these are examples of this only, that even those who are trying to do wrong to you, have a friendly disposition to them and show compassion to them. And remember, these are not qualities Krishna is saying of a bhakta. Bhakta should have it. Even a karma yogi is supposed to have such qualities. So that's how he says. Even a karma yogi is supposed to have qualities. So in Ramanujacharya's life itself, we have the story of this Kuresh, right? He's also an example of this. This Kuresh, at one point of time, there was this person called Naluram who told the Chola king, who was very much attached to the concept that Shiva is only the supreme personality of Godhead. He said that if Ramanuja accepts Shiva is supreme, then everybody will accept. So we know the whole story. I'm just cutting it short. That Ramanuja and Kuresh, they exchange their clothes. Kuresh goes as Ramanuja to the court and he doesn't agree to that proposal. And Ramanuja actually goes to Melkote or somewhere. And then we know that how the Chola king on his order, Kuresh actually loses his eyes and so on. But finally, when Kuresh comes back and everything is settled, Ramanuja brings Kuresh to the famous temple of Varadaraja and he's requesting him that you pray to the Lord for your eyes. And he pray, and after the prayer is done, Ramanuja is asking Kuresh, what did you pray? So Kuresh is saying, I was praying that let Naluram be forgiven. Because he was afraid that Naluram somehow committed a big offense and he should not be punished for this. So this is all example of this only. Those who are doing something wrong to you, have a friendly disposition towards them and be compassionate towards them, like that. Right. So these are qualities that Krishna is talking for a karma yogi. He should have these. And Bhakta obviously should have. So before we all call ourselves as devotees, so we have to see how much we have reached these qualities. To the extent we have reached, to that extent we can call ourselves as a Vaishnava, etc. Nirmama. That means who doesn't think anything as his own. For that, he gives the example of Bharata. So what happens is when Bharata, when Bharata comes to Chitrakoot, he's unable to convince Lord Ram to come back to Ayodhya. At that time, Lord Ram says that no, you only have to go and rule. So Bharata says one very nice verse over there. He says, Rajyam cha aham cha Ramasya. He says, both me and the kingdom are both servant of Lord Ram. We are both properties of Lord Ram. How can one property or one servant rule over the other servant? So that's how he says. So this is what is an example he gives for Nirmama. It's not mine. So the kingdom of Ayodhya, Bharata says, that is property of Ram and I am also property of Ram. How can one property rule over another property? That's not correct, he says. Of course, we know Ram doesn't agree. So finally he takes the Paduka. So I'm just cutting that story again short here. But this is an example of Nirmama. Then again, Samadukka Sukakshami, who is equipoised. So then see, again, if you see this, now why, again, Ramanujacharya explains why he's saying these are qualities of Karma Yogi, because many of these qualities have already come previously. If you remember our discussions in 3rd chapter, 5th chapter, 6th chapter Bhagavad Gita, so many times Krishna has Nirmama Nirahankara, he has said there also. And he has also spoken about the Samadukka Sukha, that means being equipoised in pleasure and pain. So these are not qualities that only a bhakta has to have. Even a karma yogi needs to have these qualities. He needs to have these qualities, who withstands heat and cold, who does things because they are to be done, and so on. So this is a karma yogi is also a very, very high level thing, right? Even to be a perfect karma yogi is not a simple thing. Sometimes we may think that, oh, somebody karma yogi means, okay. So of course, many times people don't understand what is karma yoga, so they may think about it in a very simplistic fashion. But these are all internal attributes of a person. If somebody has them, then we have to accept that they are karma yogi. They may or may not be a Vaishnava also externally, as in a dedicated Vaishnava. They may be worshipping Devata or they may be doing something else, but still they are to be considered karma yogi if they have these qualities. If such qualities are exhibited in any person in the world, they are to be considered. And we may see that also. We may see that as well. Let's go ahead. Next verse. Santushta satatam yogi yatatma drada nischaya mayi arpita mano buddhir yomat bhakta same priyaha. So again, the word bhakta is coming, but Ramanujacharya reminds us that this is a karma yogi also, who is also sometimes called as a bhakta, and it's a bhakta also. So it is for both. Even karma yogi must have these qualities. So what are the qualities mentioned? That devotee of mine who practices karma yoga, he who feels contented with whatever fate may bring him for the sustenance of his body, the one who is always contemplating that the Jivatma is different from the body, he who has his mind under control, who has firm conviction on the teachings of the Vedanta, he who has offered his manas and buddhi to Bhagavan is dear to me. Okay, so like this he defines. So let's go over some of these qualities. So some qualities, there's a lot of commentary. Santushta, he has given lot of commentary. So for Santushta, he says that Santushta, how do you understand whether a person is Santushta or no? He says, Santushta means you're happy with whatever food is obtainable. So I'll just read the verse he has written. Shastriyeshu ayatna upanateshu prabhuta alpa sarasa virasadi vaishamya bhava. That means food as per Shastric injunctions without much difficulty. Okay, and if it is little less or something, not complaining, not being too fussy about the taste, and this kind of an approach to food, if you have, he says you're santushta. Okay, so my family is here, they're watching me and they're smiling. Maybe they feel that I've not reached this step, but obviously I don't claim that I'm here. I'm just reading out what Ramanujacharya says. Okay, so these are uh, santushta. So santushta contentment is defined in terms of food. That means, I think there is this famous verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita also, right? Jivera lalasaha iti uti dhai. What is that? I forgot. Shishnodara parayana Krishna 9.5. That is the verse. That means just for the tongue, one who is running here and there, he doesn't obtain Krishna. So that is the same commentary Ramanujacharya uses here in this Santushta. That means in terms of food, whatever is simple, which you can obtain, which is in line with Shastra, which is not being too fussy and complaining, I want like this only, it should be like that and all that. Such a person is called Santushta. Then he gives examples. He gives example of Jadavarata from the Bhagavatam, or like a python also. So it is said a python, the python has the characteristic that whatever comes, it takes it. It doesn't make too much fuss about, I want only this type of animal. Whatever animal is available, it comes close to it, it just takes it and it is happy with that. So that is a python. Ajigara vritti. So the commentary here is that a devotee also should have this approach towards food and not be too this thing, because then we may tend to move away from dharma, right? Another thing is a satatam yogi. So satatam yogi has given a very good commentary. So satatam yogi means, he says your general lifestyle also should be like that of a yogi only. So he says that a karma yogi, if you remember, the karma yogi does karma yoga, but 15 minutes or 1 hour or something, he may do dhyana yoga in the morning. He may sit and meditate on the Atma. Then I'm talking about the impersonalist karma yogi. Even such a person, he says here, he has to be satatam yogi. That means even in his normal course of daily life, he has to have that approach to life in general as a yogi. Because it cannot happen that in his normal life he's completely into bhoga and suddenly he switches consciousness. So Satatam Yogi means Karma Yogi has to have that yogic consciousness always. Okay. Dridha Nishchaya and all are simple, fixed determination and so on. Nishchaya. So Dridha Nishchaya means he says you should have Nishchaya for your sadhana. So that is how he translates Dridha Nishchaya. Whatever sadhana you do, even the Karma Yogi does some sadhana, right? That sadhana also has to have Dridha Nishchaya. He decides I will do this much, he should do that. Mahi arpita mano buddhi. The mana and buddhi should be offered to Bhagavan. So he has given a very nice definition of mana, chitta, and buddhi. Right, we all hear this. There is the mana, chitta, buddhi, and ahankar. Four things are there in the subtle body. So what is mana? So he says mana means when you think about something, that is mana. When you just think about something, a thought comes, that is manas. The thought has come in manas. Chitta means when you contemplate on something too much, that is chitta. So manas is just a thought that comes inside your system. I want to eat this. But when you keep contemplating, I want to eat the pani puri only, whatever. I want to eat, I want to eat. And buddhi means when you get convinced and try to actually do that action, then that is buddhi. So going back to our example, I want to eat pani puri, a thought coming that is in the manas, but repeated thinking that I want to eat this item only, that is chitta. And then buddhi means actually working towards it. So buddhi is considered superlative in the sense it's considered, because that's why buddhi is considered in the mode of passion. If you go back to the Srimad Bhagavatam, buddhi is considered a transformation in the mode of passion because the buddhi makes you work. It takes you to that next level of doing. Manas is just a thought. Manas comes from the mode of goodness. So if you attack at the root, the manas itself, and it doesn't go to the contemplation level, then the buddhi will be protected. So the whole idea is that if a thought is repeatedly contemplated in the chitta, and then one decides to work towards it in the buddhi, then later stage to withdraw is very difficult. Right? We see this always, that once a person has decided to do something, to withdraw is not that easy. I mean, we see that with devotees also. You can put them in some project, but once the ball is set rolling, you can't withdraw because the buddhi is engaged now. So then to come back is even more difficult. So Krishna is saying that your manas and buddhi, everything has to be offered to me. Okay. So one who does this, he's very dear. So again, as we know, this applies to the devotee also, but it applies to a karma yogi as well. Okay. I mean, I'm not reiterating that point again because anything that is for a karma yogi is also for the devotee. Okay. The 15th verse, Yasmanno dvijate loko lokanno dvijate chayah harsha bhayodvege mukto yassachame priyah. The person who is engaged in karma yoga, who does not indulge in any action threatening or repulsive to this world, and to whom the world also does not do anything causing fear or aversion in him. Further, the one who does not show joy towards some people, anger at some other people, fear towards still some others, and aversion at some others, such a karma yogi is also very dear to me. So some more qualities are mentioned here. Again, as I said, it's applicable to all. So the first thing is, Yasmano dvijate loko. That means nobody should fear you. So somebody may ask, how can I control whether people will fear me or not? So he says the answer is, don't speak or do things in such a way that people fear you. So it's in your hand. Because if you speak and you behave in some ways, then only somebody is going to fear you. Right? So he says that one should not act or speak in such a way that people fear us. And neither should we be worried by others. Okay, now the second part, to whom the world does not cause any fear. So why the world does not cause any fear? Because you're a yogi. And for the yogi, the highest destination is clear in his mind, whether it's an impersonalist, personalist, or whatever. So because of that, the world doesn't cause any fear to him. He is not afraid of anything. That's the whole point here. And do not have harsha, bhaya, and so on. And this is all towards people. Harsha, amarsha, bhaya, udvega, all these qualities towards people. That equipoised. Again, we're going back to that equipoised. The equipoised, if you remember, was said in the 6th chapter also. Krishna had said in the 6th chapter that Suhrin towards Mitra, Bandhu, dvesha, all these people, there has to be an equanimity. That's why we understand these are all qualities of a karma yogi, because these were mentioned over there like that. Correct. So let's move ahead. The 16th verse. अनपेक्ष शुचिदक्ष उदासीनो गतव्यतः सर्वारंभ परित्यागी यो मद्भक्त समे प्रियः. The karma yogi who has devotion to me, who has no desire for anything else other than the jivatma, who nourishes his body with the food permitted by Shastra, which leads to purity of body and mind, who is expert in performing actions prescribed in the Shastra, and is not interested in activities either not sanctioned or proscribed by the Shastra. He is not fatigued by heat, cold, etc., unavoidably encountered in the course of performing Shastric rituals, and one who desist from all other activities which do not facilitate knowledge of the Jivatma, such a Karma Yogi is very, very dear to me. So let's focus on some of these translation and commentaries. Suchihi. So here again in Suchihi, he has spoken about food. He's saying that Suchi means in your food habits you be very clean. Shastra Vihita Dravyena Vardita Kayaha. That means you have to eat things only what is prescribed by the Shastra. Actually, if you go back even 100 years back in India, people were very, very particular about where they eat, from whose hand they eat, etc. Food and giving the daughter in marriage. This was something people in India were always very, very reserved about. They weren't okay with eating anywhere and everywhere. This whole restaurant is a very, very, very modern concept, right? You just go somewhere and you don't even know who cooks, but we pay money and we buy it. So because somehow we have lost that fine, subtle attitude towards food in terms of how it is affecting us. But without a doubt, it affects us. Prabhupada also, remember in one conversation or something, he talks about it. He said that he has seen even Brahmins, etc. in Bengal. He said that they will never eat from anyone else's hands. They will be swapaki, he says. They will only cook and eat. Actually, that's why it is called swaipak. In Marathi, they call it swaipak. Okay, but nowadays what happens is, due to obviously various other factors beyond our control, most people have a maid, for example, and we say that for swaipak we have a maid at home. In one sense, it is going against the word itself, because swaipak comes from sopaki. That means I will only cook, right? So you can't have someone else cook for you and say that I have a maid to do swaipak. So people do that. Somehow our languages are very rich, even if it is Marathi or any regional language. They convey the meaning of the word very clearly, what is being said. But we tend to forget that. So this is all connected to Suchihi. So be very clean in your food habits, he says. And this cleanliness is, of course, external, but it is as well connected to the person who is cooking. The cleanliness of his mind or her mind. It's connected to that. Daksha, he says Daksha means expert. Expert in what? He says expert broadly in whatever is Varnashram activity is. So he says one has to be expert in that. That is a quality of Karma Yogi. I was quite impressed by such a translation, because it indicated that, because Karma Yogi is connected to Varnashram, right? So whatever Varnashram duty he has to be expert at it. He's a Brahmana, he has to be expert at Yajan, teaching Sanskrit, Shastra, whatever he does. If he is a Kshatriya, he has to be expert in his administration, in his warfare, and so on. Udasina, so that is expertise. So expertise is considered a quality. Udasina has given a very nice commentary. Udasina generally means indifferent. He says indifferent means what? What do you mean indifferent? Can we be indifferent? Now the scriptures say you must do something. Like for example, the scriptures say one must get up early in the morning. Simple example. So can I say that I'm indifferent to that? Okay, I'll not get up. No, one has to. The scripture says that, and scripture says something you cannot do. Right? Like for example, the scripture may say that during Sandhya Samay, you should not be lying down. You should be engaged in meditation and prayer. So can I be indifferent to that? Say, oh, I'm udasi. I don't really bother. No, so udasina means so what the commentary Ramanuja gives is there are three types of actions in this world. One, the scripture say you must to do. One, the scriptures say you must not do, and one, the scriptures don't say anything about it. So he says, for example, let's consider trekking a mountain or going for a swim. The scriptures don't give an instruction that you must swim every day for half an hour. The scriptures don't say that once a while you must do trekking of a mountain. It's good for your health. Scriptures don't say that. They have not said you must do it. They have not said you must not do it. So towards such activities, he says you be udasi. Hua to hua, nahi to nahi. That type of an activity. Right? But the activities which the scriptures have mandated, that I cannot be udasi. And the activities the scriptures have forbidden, there also I cannot be udasi in saying that, okay, if I'm able to follow that regulative principle, then fine. Otherwise, no, I cannot do that because I cannot be udasina in that. So it's a very good commentary of the word udasina. Right. Then gatavyataha. Gatavyataha means he says when you do any your varnashrama duty, whatever it may be. Suppose you're a brahmana, you will do some rituals or some yajna. If you're a kshatriya, you may be doing something. In the course of doing that, there will be so many troubles that will come. And that trouble should not affect you too much. I mean, you should keep persevering. That is how he defines kata. Sarvarambha parityagi means, now if you look at it literally, Sarvarambha parityagi means all kinds of arambha. Arambha means any kind of endeavor or beginning, parityagi, give up. So he says no. Other than that, connected to the karma yoga, whatever is maybe there, be aloof from that. So that is how he defines it. Okay. So it's a very, very holistic description of these qualities. And one has to really meditate where we are in this whole thing. Right. Now let's go to the next one, 17. Yona hrishyati na dveshti na sochati na kankshati shubha varityagi bhaktiman yasame priyaha. That karma yogi who does not rejoice on getting something which generally causes happiness in people, nor does he hate when something hateful happens to him, does not grieve when a sorrowful event happens, does not long for a coveted object yet not obtained, has relinquished actions which produces merits and demerits, both of which are inimical to attaining liberation. Such a karma yogi who is full of devotion is very dear to me. Okay, so one second. So Ramanujacharya says that in this verse, Krishna is greatly speaking about if we land in trouble, then how to handle all this. Now again, so first thing Ramanujacharya says is again Hrishyati and all have come. Now if you remember, this Hrishyati had already come in the 15th verse, right? Harsha Marsha Bhayodvege. Wahan par aaya tha. And here also Krishna is saying Yona Hrishyati. In Nyaya, there is a concept of punarukti is to be avoided. That means repetition is never to be there. So this acharyas, what they do when they give commentary on verses is whenever there is an apparent repetition, they debate on that a lot. That why this is not a repetition, this is in a different context. So in the 15th verse, this Harshati had come, and the same Harshati has come again now in this verse also. Ramanujacharya says in the 15th verse, if you remember our translation, Harshati was in correction to people. That means don't be too much affected with people. But now this is all in terms of objects. So why he says that? Because that is the context of this verse he says. Sochati, kankshati is all towards object. I mean generally when we do kankshati or we desire some object, right? And sochati, we grieve when something we had got lost, like that. So he says this verse is in that context. So he says don't be hrishyati with objects or dveshti, don't envy any object that somehow either you got lost or something like that. So that is how he explains this verse. So the entire verse is in the context of object. Shubha Shubha Parityag. Shubha Shubha Parityagi means he says that don't be attached to punya and papa. That means which will take you to Swarga and Naraka. Because even the Karma Yogi, a part of his Nishkamatha is that he doesn't aspire to go to Swarga. He is wanting liberation. That's why it's called as a yogi, right? He may be impersonalist, But still, he is not interested in Swarga. He is interested in impersonal liberation. If he is an impersonalistic Karma Yogi. Okay, so that is why all these qualities are being said here. Okay, let's go ahead now. The last three verses, 18, 19, and 20. As I told you, 18 and 19 are again about Karma Yogi only. The 20th verse will be about Bhakta, exclusive about Bhakta. Okay, the 18, 19th are again to be read together. We'll go through it. Samashatrau cha mitre cha tata manapamanayo shitoshna sukadukeshu samasanga vivarjitah. The Karma Yogi who is devoted to me, who treats friend and foe alike, even when they are present close to him, who considers honor and ignominy on equal levels, who has undifferentiating attitude towards contrary experiences like heat and cold, happiness and sorrow, and who is not attached to anything. Okay. So first thing Sripad Ramanujacharya says is, why has again apparently repetition come? If you remember in the 13th verse, we said, right, Adveshta Sarva Bhutanam. And here Krishna is saying, Sama Shatrau cha Mitrecha. So Shatru and Dvesh Karna, it looks similar only. He says, no, it is not similar. So let's analyze this first. So first thing is, he says, this entire verse and the next verse is again speaking about Samatva. This Samatvam is such an important qualification for Karma Yogi. What to speak of a devotee? Krishna emphasizes this so much in the Bhagavad Gita. Repeatedly, he talks about Samatvam in different ways, in different contexts. Right? Samatvam, the whole fifth chapter, the last part of fifth chapter is all about Samatvam. Sixth chapter, beginning 10 verses also has a lot of things about Samatvam. So the Samatvam is considered very, very critical. So what all Samatvam? Samashatraucha mitrecha. Friend and foe. So first thing Ramanujacharya says, how can you have somebody whom you will call as Shatru? That goes against Samabuddhi. Na? If you are saying that you are Samabuddhi, how can you say this is my enemy? He says, no, you don't look at him as the enemy, but he looks at you as the enemy. So unfortunately, you have to call him enemy. Right? Like Yudhishthir Maharaj doesn't look at Duryodhana as enemy. But since Duryodhana looks at Yudhishthir as enemy, from worldly perspective, he'll have to make that distinction. Okay, this is someone who considers me as enemy. Like that. Then, as far as the other thing is concerned, Adveshta. So, what is the difference between Adveshta and this verse, Shatru? So, he says the 13th verse which said Adveshta, that was general. That means someone who has hatred for you somewhere in the world. He may be sitting in United States or Canada, but he has hatred for you. Such a person, Adveshta, that person comes under that Dvesha Bhavana. He need not be near you. But Ramanujacharya says, this verse is talking about the Shatru or Mitra who is next to you. So how do we understand this? He says, because the same verse is talking about Shita Ushna. And Shita Ushna means something near, right? I will not say that in Antarctica currently it is cold, so I am feeling cold. Okay, in Antarctica it may be cold, but I am not feeling that cold over here. But if in my area there is heat or cold, then I am going to feel it. So Shita Ushna is felt only when it is close to you. Right? When an object, when something that gives heat like fire or ice, when it is close to you only, you will feel heat or cold. If it is very far away, you are not going to feel that. Somewhere it may be cold, but that doesn't affect us. So since this verse is in the context of this, he says the Shatru Mitra also you have to look in that context only. That means he says Krishna here is talking about someone who considers himself as your enemy, who is close to you right now. For some reason, he's standing next to you, or yes, he's very close to you. He's your neighbor only. Such a person. Samashatraucha Mitrecha. And there will be somebody who looks at you as Mitra also, be equal to them, he says. Tata Mana Apamana. So look at everything like this. Mana Apamana also is very close, right? It's something somebody is standing next to you and either criticizing you or correct, like Srivas Thakur, that neighbor was there who kept all the paraphernalia of Durga worship outside his house. Like that, right? Somebody is trying to do apamana to you. All that. Sangha Varjita, don't have attachment to anything, then only it is possible. So Sangha Varjita means, so one has to have that basic thing of detachment. So these are all qualities of Karma. And then Krishna continues this Samatvam in the next verse also. Tulya Ninda Stutir Mauni Santushto Yena Kenachite Aniketa sthiramatir bhaktiman me priyo naraha. He who treats praise and insult alike. Instead of returning praise for someone who praises him and not insulting someone who insults him, he remains silent. He who remains satisfied with whatever chance brings him, he who does not have attachment and who is focusing steadfast on Atma Sakshatkar, such a person is dear to me. Yeah, so this verse also, he says, Tulya Ninda Sutamam, who treats praise and insult alike. Okay, so that's the first thing. That means don't take praise and criticism too seriously in life. And now this word Mauni, which is there, Ramanacharya says, you have to see Mauni in the context of Tulya Ninda Stuti. He says, generally our tendency is somebody praises you a lot, then we return the praise, and somebody criticizes, then we return the criticism. So he says Mauni means not, this Mauni has to be seen in the context of Tulya Ninda Sthiti. See, this is how commentary comes in. Generally, without a commentary, what will happen is we will see Tulya Ninda Stuti as one word and Mauni as one word. And we may say Mauni means to be silent. So we may say, what does it mean to be silent? Why is Krishna saying that we should be silent? Ramanujacharya says, be silent in the context of Ninda and Stuti. Because generally, our tendency is when Stuti is there to be very happy with the person who does Stuti. And when there is Ninda, to again insult back. So at that time, be Mauni. Don't take that too seriously. These things keep coming and going. Like that he says. Again, it's a very beautiful commentary if you think about it. It's just connecting the verse. Right? Santushto yena kenachit. Be satisfied with whatever you have. Please remember, in the Gita, the Karma Yoga emphasizes on action, not on the result. So that's why you will simultaneously see Krishna talking about being engaged in karma, but at the same time not being obsessed over the result. This is all the same thing, right? Santushto yena kena chite means just be happy with whatever you get. That doesn't mean you are not supposed to do prayatna. That prayatna is part of the karma yoga. That is part of action that you must do. That is obligatory. But the result is not in our hands. So be satisfied with whatever you get. So you have to always remember the Gita amazingly keeps connecting these two things. Aniketa means this is literally not that one doesn't have a house. Don't be attached to your house or land. Thiramati means fixed in the Atma. Such a person is dear to. Till now, we have completed the fourth thing which Yamunacharya says called Tat Prakaraha, the attributes that a Karma Yogi must have. And our devotee also must have all this. Okay, but Karma Yogi. Now, the 20th verse is going to be exclusively about a devotee. Okay, which is not in a Karma Yogi. Let's see that. Yetu dharmyam rutamidam yatoktam paryupasate shraddhadana mat parama bhaktaste tiva me priyaha. So first thing Ramanujacharya says is Krishna is saying here, ativa me priyaha, very, very dear to me. So this is about the bhakta only. And many other reasons also, we will see the translation. However, in contrast to such karma yogis who are aiming for Atma Sakshatkar, those who with exceedingly great faith that Bhagavan is the supreme goal to be attained, practice the nectarian bhakti yoga, which was explained in the previous chapters as a means and also after attaining Bhagavan, with the goal of attaining me, such devotees are exceedingly dear to me. So Ramanacharya says this is a circle. Circle means what? Krishna is connecting back to 12.1, 12.2. So if you remember, what happened in 12.1, 12.2? Arjuna had asked, right? Evam satata yuktaye bhaktastam paryupasate echa praksharam abhyaktam tesham ke yoga viktam. Who is better? One who is on akshara abhyaktam, one who is meditating on the Atma for Kaivalya Mukti, or your devotee. And there in 12.2, Krishna has said, Maya Vesha Manoyema Mithya Yukta Upasate Shraddhadana Mat Parama. He said, right? So in 12.2, he had said very clearly that one who is, let's go back to that verse once again. Yeah, Maya Vesha Manoyema Mithya Yukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopeta Yeme Yukta Tamamataha. Krishna said, those who are worshipping me with great faith. So Ramanujacharya says here again, Shraddha has come, right? The Shraddha has come because it is connected to that. So Shraddha Dhana means with great faith that Bhagavan is the goal to be attained. Such a person is practicing. That is the first clue that this is only about a devotee. Second thing is Dharmya Amrutam. Amrita Dharma is, he says, Bhakti Yoga. Dharma Amritam. He basically translated as Amrita Dharma. So what is Amrita Dharma? The Dharma which is nectarian. And he says nectarian Dharma is only Bhakti Yoga. Nothing else is nectarian. Okay. It may be Dharma, but it is not Amrita Dharma. So he uses this word Dharma Amritam. Because Krishna is saying Amrita Dharma, he says this is only Bhakti Yoga. So this Bhakti Yoga, which is, so Krishna is saying here, this Bhakti Yoga, one with great faith, one who is practicing this, Mat Parama, that is another indication that this is about only devotee. That means he has the goal of attaining Krishna. So even the Kaivalya Kami, he doesn't have a goal of attaining Krishna. He wants something else only. He wants Brahman realization. But this person, so three reasons are there why this verse is only about it. Shraddha, there is Amrita Dharma, there is Mat Parama, which are all unique characteristics for a devotee. And because such a person is, and such a person, and final clue that it is about a devotee is because Krishna is saying, Ativa me priyaha, exceedingly dear to me. So Ramanujacharya says, it's not that the others are not dear, everybody is dear to Krishna. So Ramanujacharya reminds us of the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna had said, Chaturvida bhajante mam jana sukritanodhuna artho jignasuratati jnani cha bharatastha. So there Krishna says that all these four are great, but jnani is special. He says that, right? He says that. So similarly, the other Kaivalya Kami and those who are aspiring for Aishwarya, all these people are also dear to Krishna. Krishna is not saying they are not dear to me, but the devotee is exceedingly dear to him. Okay, so that is why, so that is how Ramanujacharya says Krishna has connected this whole thing back to 12.1 and 12.2 and completed the chapter. Thus, we see again Yamunacharya's verse which summarizes, right? So now you will understand this. Bhakti Shreshtham, how Bhakti is greater than Kaivalya Mukti or Atma Upasana, first theme. Second thing is how the means of Bhakti, 12.8, 9, 10. Atmanishtha, how to perform Atma Upasana by one who is incapable of performing Bhakti. Krishna did speak about it. Yetvaksharamanardisham abhyaktam paripasate, all those verses. One who cannot do Bhakti, if he is interested in that, he can do. Tat Prakara, the attributes for Karma Yogi. And finally, how the Bhakta is exceedingly dear to Krishna, have been spoken in the 12th chapter of the Gita. Right? So, with that, we have completed the second part of the Gita. So if you remember Yamunacharya's commentary in the beginning itself, it was about 3 parts, right? So there was the part 1, part 2, and part 3. Part 1 was Karma Yoga leading to Dhyana. It was mainly Karma Yoga. Part 2 was about Bhakti. And now part 3, which we will begin from next time, is very, very interesting. Generally, many of us, we have heard part 3 is Jnana. But Ramanujacharya and Yamunacharya have a completely different way of talking about part 3. We will see that from next time. But the second part of Gita is over, where the goal was Krishna and how to achieve him has been said very nicely by Krishna himself. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Any question or comment we can take? Yes, Damodar bro, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Guruji, these qualities which we just discussed, now in the pastime of Shamantaka Jewel, like we see Krishna was kind of means misunderstood. So he took an effort of finding out Shamantaka Jewel, and there are many other instances where we see the devotees have tried to do something when they got misunderstood or say some kind of humiliated. So here we see that in one of the qualities I will mention that he doesn't do anything, even if he's praised or he's insulted.
Yeah, it is not exactly that he doesn't do anything. Krishna's focus in the verses was he's equal to both. But despite, so the point is, see, again, there are two things here. One is the effort and one is the result. Throughout the Gita, the concept is that the effort has to always be there. But the result, since we don't have control over it, we detach from that. So even if you do the effort to clarify your position, still somebody may still continue to misunderstand you. Then what do? You have to come back to these qualities. These qualities, I did mention when I was speaking, they are all in terms of the result. Okay, that whole equipoised concept is in terms of result. Even this whole thing of be satisfied with whatever is there, it is all in terms of result. Otherwise, somebody may say, why are the Pandavas fighting the war? Let them be satisfied with whatever is there. They're sitting in the forest. They can eat some simple food and be happy in that. But no, that is your dharma, that is the action. So the Gita, makes this distinction between the action which must be done and the result on which we have no control, where we maintain that equipoised nature. So despite our efforts, somebody will still misunderstand us and look at us as our enemy. Fair enough. Be equal to them. Look at that situation. That looking at the situation equally is never to be seen in terms of action. In fact, none of these verses have to be seen in terms of action. If you see it in terms of action, then you're finished. You will get a complete wrong interpretation. If you say, for example, that be satisfied with whatever is there, okay, so then nobody progresses only, right? Because everybody has something. So just sit over there and no, it's not like that. In action, one has to do. So you have to go back to third chapter. Is that okay?
Yes, Parul. And if we see on a broader community level also, whenever something threatening is happening, we should take action, but you should be detached. That's
On the result,
at
you
all
should
levels.
always be detached. If you have taken the action, you have to always be detached. You can't do anything much about it.
Yes, there is no explanation like on a personal level, you should be acting in a different way, on community level, different way. Is that anything
Not even like
that's
that. It's not even like that. That differentiation is very difficult to make because if you go back to the stories also, even on a personal level, if somebody is like we sometimes we may see some story like Srivas Thakur is being insulted by his neighbors and on a personal level he's not doing anything. But the other devotees are not very happy, right? They try to clarify it because that image of a person becomes his way in which he contributes in the world. And that's why best example we can see Krishna. You took the right example of the Shamantaka. Krishna's name was being spoiled and he worked very hard to restore his name back. He didn't say that, okay, let it be. He worked hard, but there was a detachment in that work. See, that work and the result, we have to see that separate.
yes, Parul, thank you.
Any other question or comment? Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. We'll continue next time from the 30th chapter. Prabhupada ki jai. Sripad Ramanacharya ki jai.